Most of the stories we do will be organized using what's called the inverted pyramid. Basically what it does is has a lead that summarizes what's going on in the story and then presents the rest of the information in descending order of importance. This is an example of how the inverted pyramid would be used when putting together a story about a car crash. Your lead is going to summarize what happened. After that, you're going to identify the injured, explain how the accident occurred, and then you'll go into lesser details until you get to the end, which is just minor details. You'll notice in the previous example that we reported on what happened to the people involved in the accident before we talked about what happened to the cars or how the accident occurred. That's because we tend to focus on what happens to people because people are more important than things. One nice thing about the inverted pyramid is that if someone reads only part of a story, they'll still get what they need to know out of the story. Research shows that people read only part of the story, especially if it jumps to another page. The second paragraph should continue with what you set up in your lead. If you don't emphasize the news, or you don't have a smooth transition, it's going to make the story seem dull or disorganized. Leapfrogging happens when we refer to someone in the lead, name them in the second paragraph, but don't make it explicitly clear that we're talking about the same person. Remember, we don't want to keep our readers guessing. After you've established what the story is about in your lead, you want to continue with the news in the second paragraph. Your readers will have expectations based on that lead, and you want to meet those. Don't go off into some other topic. Placing too much emphasis on sources' identities can make a story dull, and it also sometimes squeezes out important information. In the revised version here, you'll see it has a lot less identification and a lot more good information. Background information should be saved for later in the story, if it's needed at all. Remember, your lead will set up expectations for your reader, and you want to meet those with the rest of the story. The hourglass style is another structure we'll use for some stories. The hourglass style starts with an inverted pyramid, then transitions into a chronology. Stories that describe events work really well with these. We want to use transitions to help our stories move along smoothly. Transitional sentences can be effective, but, just like with leads, we want them to say what happened, not just that something happened. Sometimes we'll need to explain unfamiliar terms to our readers. Depending on how long the explanation is, there are a number of different ways to handle those, as shown in this slide and the next one.
If it's a longer explanation, you can always place it in a separate sentence. This avoids the problem of having long, clunky sentences. Another option as well is to just write around the problem. Instead of saying that the school have K-6 facilities, instead of using that term K-6 facilities, which might not be known to everybody, you can just use the definition instead. It's probably clearer for your reader.
We need to make sure that our stories are fair. If it's a story about a controversy, every significant viewpoint needs to be presented fairly and fully. If a story contains information critical of someone, they need to be given the chance to respond, and not in a different story. We should have them respond in this one. If they choose not to do so, though, there should be some language that points that out to our readers.